We've got a cold night in much of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states as a little shot of colder air came in today. It settles in for Thursday. Then we move on to the weekend, and the Gulf of Mexico will spawn a storm that will be headed for the East Coast and will probably have impacts from Florida all the way up to Maine. We will talk about that, and we will discuss the long range. All of that coming up just momentarily on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. You can get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is about to be pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this live stream. And make sure if you make any purchase, take advantage of the coupon code, which is I want a weather station. Because if you do, what will they get, Joe Rayo?
Agita. No, 10% off. 10% off.
All right. Well, good evening, and good evening to everybody on the chat board, and those of you lurking in the background tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Got a lot going on, I think, going into this weekend. One thing that crossed my mind, Joe, is that this system that's going to develop in the Gulf of Mexico, I was thinking that Miami should make it a tropical storm and then immediately make it post-tropical, which which we know they love to do. But all kidding aside, it looks like we're going to have a bit of a powerhouse that's going to develop in the northeastern Gulf of Mexico and then move its way up the eastern seaboard. The upper air is a little complicated, so it's hard to figure out how this is going to play from start to finish. But it does look like there's going to be a lot of heavy rain from Florida up the coast to New England, and also I think at least along the coast when that gradient kicks in later Sunday night into Monday afternoon. We're probably going to have another round of strong winds. I don't know how strong, but it should get pretty gusty, I would think.
Yeah, it does. And again, for all who are, looking for the possibility of a little bit of frozen precipitation, well, all I can say is that on the backside of this thing, maybe on Monday night, Tuesday morning, there might be a little bit of snow, maybe, but more than likely, we're looking at mainly a rain event to dampen your pleasure for Monday and into Monday night.
Well, I will tell you, I was a bit intrigued by the run today because we were talking about that northern shortwave and how if it stays to the north, that's one thing, but when we've seen cases where there's rain changing to snow, you get that shortwave to dig down a bit, which is what the day runs did. And I was looking at it and I thought, you know what, if it could just dig a little bit more, it wouldn't take much more. But that's the big question because we don't know if that is actually going to do that. It could very well stay up in Canada, in which case it'll be all the southern stream that we'll be dealing with, and then the outcome will be different. But I think that's one of the things we're going to work out over the next 5 days because we're talking about something that's still, we're talking later Monday night, Tuesday, if that's going to happen. But the first part of this is definitely going to be, a windswept soaking rain that's going to be moving up the coast. And I think for Florida, too, I mean, they already have gale warnings up for the east coast of Florida. And I think for Florida and certainly from there northward through the Carolinas and southeastern Virginia, there's going to be some pretty strong winds along the coast.
Yes, the gradient is certainly going to tighten up with this thing as it emerges out of the Gulf of Mexico. And we also have that big ridge of high pressure, both at the surface and at the upper levels. So as that thing comes crawling up the coast and tries to nudge that big fair weather high, the isobars are going to start getting tighter. And that eventually means stronger winds and gustier winds. And we'll certainly be feeling that if the models are correct by later in the weekend.
Okay, so before we get into weather, Joe, I think this is addressed to you from Johnny Quest. The Geminids, the Geminid meteor shower, and you should have a clear. It should be clear at some point tonight.
Yeah, it's mostly clear out there right now. I did mention in my Facebook forecast the slight risk of maybe a snow shower passing by. There were snow showers, especially to the north of my area during the course of the afternoon. But I think for the most part, it's going to be clear. The only problem, and the Geminids, it's so. If the Geminids took place in July or August or September, even October, everybody would know about it and everybody would go out to take a look. But they don't. They occur in December. And, every year when they come by, it's usually the same kind of weather pattern. I was just outside a little while ago. It's going to be in the 20s tonight. There's a bit of a breeze. There'll be a chill factor in the probably somewhere in the teens at least by daybreak. It's always it's more of a chore. I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, it's a shower, the best one of the year. I mean, the most reliable of the year. If you want to see a shooting star, tonight and tomorrow night will be your 2 nights to go and look. But it is cold, and you lay there on, let's say, a long lounge chair and just sit still for a while, unless you're really bundled up. Radiational cooling, especially, will get to you, and you'll get very cold very quickly. But again, it's one of the best meteor showers of the year. If you had access to a dark sky, supremely dark sky with no obstructions, no tall trees, no tall building, you had a wide open view of the sky, and you were able to lay out there for a full hour and look late tonight, you would probably count anywhere from 60 to 120 shooting stars in that 1 hour's time. I mean, and they're of all different varieties. There's the short, faint ones, and a few of them will be fireballs, which streak across the sky and leave a trail behind them for a few seconds. You might even catch sight of a bolide or an exploding meteor, which is like a strobe or a flash bulb. I've seen many Geminid showers over the year, Joe. In fact, I'll dig this up if you give me sharing capabilities.
Oh yeah.
A friend of mine did a cartoon after a bunch of us. We went up to, it doesn't even exist anymore, WVIP in Mount Kisco.
Go for it. You can share.
40 plus years ago, there was a radio station in Mount Kisco, and it was dark. I mean, the skies were dark, perfect view of the stars. I said, hey, to a bunch of my friends, let's go up to the radio station and take a look at the Geminid meteor shower. And we did. Joe, the day before it snowed. We had about 4 inches of snow. And that night of the meteor shower, the winds died down. The temperature, we were able to constantly run inside the radio station and check the thermometer. It had a digital thermometer. At one point, the thermometer read 0.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Half degree. And like, Joe, at the end of that night, we all looked like we just spent the night inside of a meat locker. We were like frozen. I thought,
I bet.
I thought my arm was going to break off or whatever. These are the things you do for celestial sights that are exceptional, like the Geminid shower. So if you go out tonight, bundle up, and if you see a few shooting stars, good. That's more than enough. If you try to stay out there all night tonight with the frigidity that's out there, even though it's not really bitterly cold, still 20s, chill factor in the teens, it'll do something to you.
Yeah. David Fuller hitting super chat tonight, saying, "I'm going to Atlantic City Sunday night and Monday. There shouldn't be any flooding issues. I hope. The wife and I are eating at Hell's Kitchen, praying it's not too bad." Well, if you're timing it to go down Sunday night, you're going to probably be driving in the rain all the way down. But we'll see how the timing works with this. But we're going to get into that. And the other thing before I start on the maps, okay, so I guess my temper tantrum throwing the last few days regarding the long range might have paid off. I don't know. I will just say this, and we'll get to it. Is after looking at the last 4 runs of the models and some of the longer long range models, I am cautiously encouraged that this pattern. Now remember, folks. Two things. One is that a pattern change is a grinding process. And I think we could probably say that the beginnings of it are going to be occurring this weekend with this system going up the East Coast. The real change, though, has to happen in the Pacific. I'm not overly concerned about what's going on in the Atlantic, but it's in the Pacific that we have to start to see the changes there. That's probably not going to happen for another week to 10 days, or at least start to happen. So then it's going to take a few days for it to process. But again, I'm cautiously encouraged at what I'm seeing. The other thing I would say, as just a, you know, an addendum to that, is that remember, be careful what you wish for, because the pattern change you want and the one you wind up with may not exactly be the same thing. So it doesn't automatically mean we're suddenly going to go in some sort of winter weather snow heaven. Okay, all right? It might be something in between. I have no idea, but we just have to let the process play through, and then we'll go from there. So Joe, what did you put up on the screen here?
This is from an astronomy newsletter, the Celestial Observer, and somebody drew this sketch of the seven of us who went up to Mount Kisco, WVIP's radio station in Mount Kisco. This was December 13th into the early morning of let me see, December 13th into the early morning hours of the 14th, 1982. This is 41 years ago. This supposedly over here, this is me. Here's Sam Storch. Sam was the best man at my wedding. Craig Small, this big guy, Martin Lanier. I only saw him that night. I never saw him again after this night. Walt Gottlieb was this old guy. He's probably gone to his reward now. And two people, Jake Jacobson and Mary Hoffman. There you see temperature at lowest point, 1/2 degree above zero. P.S. A good time was had by all. Yeah, I don't know. At that time, it got to the point where we were freezing. We were like, it almost felt like at one point we were like at death's door, but we were all just like cracking each other up, telling crazy jokes or whatever. And every so often, the sky would be lit up by a very bright meteorite, the Geminid shower, which is coming our way tonight. So not as cold as it was 41 years ago, but again, the title is Seven Crazies, and you had to be crazy to go out, Joe, and spend 6 or 7 hours in temperatures that hovered close to zero to count and watch shooting stars. But that was 41 years ago. Would I do the same thing again now if it was offered to me? What are you, crazy? I'm not doing it. But back in those days, I was in my 20s, and sure, let's do it. Come on. And that's what we did. So,
all right. Well, yeah, I'm not doing it, so it ain't happening.
Going down memory lane. And one last thing. Often you tell me, Joe, about the great nights of sleep that you have.
Yes.
I came home from that night, or actually that morning. I got home, rolled into my bed in the Bronx, Throgs Neck, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I just conked out. Now, I had in my room at the time a digital radio alarm clock. I still remember the LED light was like red, and you see glowing in the dark. The last thing I remember before fading out was 6:01. And then I woke up, and it was 6:03. And oh, God. I was so like I looked at the clock. I said, 6:03? I've only been asleep for 2 minutes or whatever. No, 6:03 p.m. because I was hearing noises downstairs. I was hearing my mom, my sister. The TV was on. I had slept 12 hours and 2 minutes solidly.
Wow.
After that frigid night in Mount Kisco watching shooting stars and meteors that night. I mean, and of course, when I arrived home and went into bed at 6 o'clock, it was still dark. And when I woke up at 6:03 in the evening, it was dark again. But the entire day, I was out like a light. I don't think I've done that ever since 40 plus years ago.
Well, as you get now that you're at this age, you don't want to go to sleep and not sleep through a day. No. That's not a wise decision.
No, unfortunately, nowadays I'm up.
Yes.
At 90-minute intervals.
Yeah.
Because people my age, that's what happens when you get to my age. And if you're of the male gender, you tend to get up.
All right. If the plumbing has issues, I get it.
Exactly.
All right, let's roll along here for some weather as we take a look at the satellite loop, and uh, not a whole lot happening across the northeast and mid-Atlantic states. Of course, Joe pointing out, and we'll get that on the radar in a second. There's a little east-west band of snow showers. That's actually been up there pretty much all day, and has been slowly moving southeastward, and will be in the process of drying out. Otherwise, skies are clear from there down to northern South Carolina and North Georgia. You can see some high clouds are starting to stream in to the western Gulf states, and then going eastward. There's a lot of disorganized moisture in the northwest Caribbean, off the Florida East Coast, in the Gulf of Mexico, back across Mexico itself and out in the Pacific. Bit of a subtropical jet there coming out of the Pacific that is going to be setting up this developing low, which will start to pop up on maps probably sometime on Friday. And we also have enough energy that's up in northeastern New Mexico, northwest Texas, and up into parts of southern Colorado where it's snowing. And that's the one spot on the watches and warnings map where we've got winter storm warnings up for northeastern New Mexico, as well as southeastern Colorado, a couple of counties in westernmost Oklahoma, one county in western Oklahoma, and one county in northwest Texas under winter storm warnings. And we've got the lighter blue winter weather advisories around them. Also, a few winter weather advisories in a couple of counties east of Lake Ontario in upstate New York. And we've got dense fog advisories from southern Idaho to southern Oregon in the west. Other than that, it's still quiet. I'm waiting to see what they come up with over the next couple of days in Florida. All the purple that you see, they've already have preemptive gale warnings that are going to be going up for Saturday. So that's on the east coast of Florida, while on the west coast of Florida, they've got small craft advisories already up. So probably going to see gale warnings get pushed up. Right now, they're mainly for not the immediate coast, 20 miles offshore and beyond. But I'm thinking the gale warnings will probably also go up for the areas right along the immediate coast. And that's it as far as watches and warnings are concerned. And there are your snow showers, Joe. There's this east-west band from Lake Ontario going, running across I-90 and south and east, passing looks like just south and east of Albany, or maybe one snow shower sitting near Albany. I would think most of this stuff's going to dry out in the next bunch of hours.
Yeah, probably. I mean, they're partially convectively formed, and the sun is now long gone. And the winds will still continue for a while, but I think over the course of the night, we'll see a lot of that activity fade away. So it may be cloudier, let's say across upstate New York and New England, but with time after midnight, even those clouds will begin to fade out. And the winds were vigorous enough that they may have actually pushed a couple of those snow showers into portions of the lower Hudson Valley. I noticed that at the Albany National Weather Service, even as far south as Dutchess County, they had not only mentioned the possibility, small as it was, for a passing snow shower, Joe, but they also mentioned the fact that snow could fall heavily. So I guess they were looking at the potential of, one of these localized heavy-duty snow showers that come and go within a matter of 5 or 10 minutes, but could possibly even drop enough to produce a coating in spots.
All right. Keith James II bangs the tip jar. He's already counting down, Joe. 13 days of meteorological winter, 77 left, and probably no snow for the first 30 to 45 days. I don't know if I would go. I don't know if I would say that at this point, but I know it's very disheartening that through 13 days that we haven't seen a blizzard yet. But this is not, assuming that we get the pattern change. Unless it was a year, it's going to be a year like last year. And I think that's what everybody's hanging on here, is the fact that after last year, where it just locked in and we were, in a fire hose for 3 months, everybody's afraid of that happening again, or thinking that it's automatically going to happen again. And last year,
I don't want the fire hose. I don't want what happened last year for all of you winter weather lovers. But think about last year. Last year, we went into December, and things were moving along pretty much on schedule for a La Nina. And then all of a sudden, as if somebody just like flicked a switch, in January, we became locked into a pattern. The atmospheric river, the many storms
Right.
that came into the Pacific, hitting California, and all kinds of craziness that took place in the ensuing next 2 or 3 months. So, in a way, I don't want that pattern, but we're stuck in this pattern for the moment. But I think, and now you're beginning to lean toward that, Joe, that we may see a flip later on this month or early next month. And if we do make the flip, it could very well be that we will stay in that pattern through the balance of meteorological winter. And if that flip includes cold air, lots of storms, that could also mean lots of snow. A lot of you who have been crying so far and saying the winter is over when it hasn't even really begun yet, we'll be happy.
It's my favorite time of year. We go through this every year, Joe. It's over before it even started. Every year, it's the same thing. Every year. Yeah, I pray for the year, what was it, 2002 or 2000, maybe it was 2003, that we get a snowstorm at like the first week of December, just so that I don't have to listen to that.
Right.
Because then you get caught up in it. And, everybody just needs to just calm down. All right. Robert Lomanicki also hits the tip jar. And thank you, Robert.
Thank
Really,
you.
really appreciate it. All right. You can see the precip that's up in North Texas and in Colorado. Snow in Colorado and northeastern New Mexico. Mostly rain showers back into Texas. Probably changing over to snow in those counties that we pointed out where they've got the warnings up. Otherwise, the rest of the country's pretty quiet. There's a little bit of shower activity off the southeast coast of Florida. There's also some shower activity starting to bubble up in South Texas. But we're still, a ways away from getting the more organized development of precipitation in the Gulf of Mexico. So, on that note, WPC now you got to remember when they do their forecasts at WPC, because the time of day that they put these things out, uh, they're kind of, I would say they're probably one model cycle behind. Okay, one main model cycle behind. So they probably didn't digest all of the 12Z runs with this, and but they still uh, basically doubled the rainfall amounts that they had this morning. So now they've got the inch and a half from inland coastal Maine uh, to the Hudson Valley. Uh, the PA New Jersey border, southeast PA is at an inch and a half, runs down through eastern Virginia, central north and South Carolina, central Georgia, and then points south from there into the Gulf of Mexico. And then you've got the 2-inch line. The 2-inch is the darkest red, covering southeastern and southern New England, Long Island, New York City, coastal New Jersey. They've got a 2.5-inch little bubble there in South Jersey on the coast from, say, Ocean County southward. Uh, get down through the southern Delmarva, through extreme southeastern Virginia, and then you get into 2.5 to 3 inches coastal North and South Carolina into Florida. I'm thinking you're probably going to have to buckle that back a little bit further to the northwest when they redo these tomorrow. The half-inch line runs from northern Vermont through eastern Pennsylvania, maybe just about to I-81, and then down the I-81 corridor to eastern Tennessee. And then, of course, now you've got all this precip that's back from Louisiana northwestward into New Mexico and southwest Kansas, and some of that is snow. And here we're talking 3/4 of an inch of melted liquid to an inch and a half. And in the west, in California, central and northern California, several inches or more of precipitation over the next 7 days, and then it kind of tails off a little bit, but still there on up into the Pacific Northwest. And as for snow, the probability for at least two, fairly high in northern New Mexico and southern Colorado. I'm going to just punch up the probability of at least 8, and we do have that as well. In north parts of northeastern New Mexico, there is a 50 to 60% chance that some areas could see 8. Albuquerque, Joe, Albuquerque is on the edge of the 2-inch line, and Santa Fe is kind of in that. So anyway, That's just so I just wanted to point that out. And I'd show you what's going on in the rest of the country, except there isn't anything going on snow-wise in the next 72 hours over the rest of the country. And then as far as snow accumulations there, you see they've gotten the digital forecasts, areas of 1 foot plus northeast of Santa Fe in the mountains, and also in southern Colorado. We've got a couple of areas here. Denver gets a whole inch or a coating to an inch, but if you go south of Denver, you start to get into the 5, 6, and 7 inch amounts there. So there you have it. And I think from here, I think I'm going to let's go to the GFS. And I've got the 12Z run up, Joe, because I think this one is got probably a little bit more validity to it. Not that the 18Z doesn't open up a possibility, and I'll explain that in a moment, but I just want everybody to sort of watch what's going on in the upper air. And we've got this upper trough that's swinging through the northeast, so that explains the cold air. It explains the snow showers we're getting. You've got the cutoff low down in Arizona, and that trough moves offshore. There's the ridge building into the east for Friday into Saturday, and now you've got this cutoff that goes into Oklahoma. There's more energy dropping down from the Dakotas into this, and then which winds up making a cutoff low in the northeastern Gulf of Mexico. Now, clearly this is a cold core system, so I was just sort of joking around earlier about the Hurricane Center making it tropical and then immediately making it post-tropical. So anyway, following this along, you've got this southern energy and this cutoff, and they start lifting up to the northeast. Now, this is where, if there's going to be complications, and I think it's a low probability, but we just saw it happen with this last front, that there were some areas well inland and with elevation that got some snow out of this. But there's that short wave in Canada that's dropping down, and it just drops far enough south that it almost does a full phase with this thing by the time we get to Monday night. And it's from this that you get a little injection of cold air that could come into play. So that's the reason why the GFS and the European and the Icon did, and to a certain extent even the Canadian, did this idea that we get this big soaking rain and then maybe inland areas would change over to snow. Now, again, that's predicated on that northern shortwave coming down. If we look at the 18Z run, and this is really the primary difference, that shortwave doesn't come down on the 8th. It's there, but it's weaker, okay? And it's mostly the southern energy that comes up. So you really don't get that cold air injection. If you do get it, but you'll probably get it for areas further north and west, upstate New York, northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and Maine. So that's how, if there's going to be something that happens snow-wise, that's how it would happen. And given the way this is structured, if you're in the Appalachians, this might be another situation where you wind up getting into some snow like you did just the other day. So that's the upper features here with this particular thing. Now, I don't know about you, Joe, but I'm just kind of, whenever when all three models, and if you want to throw the Icon in, so let's say 4 models, when they all do pretty much the same thing, I think that lends to a high degree of confidence. And this is the GFS, again from 12Z, and you see that wrapped up low. Now, this is Saturday, by the way. So if you look at what's going on weather-wise in the east, it's going to be quiet until then. But this low with that strong upper feature comes in, and I mean, look at that gradient, Joe. It's really, really tight. In the southeast Sunday morning. I mean, they're going to blow away from the Carolinas, the coastal Carolinas, down to Georgia, and then into Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no doubt that that's going to happen. And the moisture, I mean, the actual storm center moves ever so slowly, and you can see how, with time, how the moisture, the heavy-duty moisture, gets literally kicked or punted straight up the coast, far off or far away from the actual storm center.
Oh yeah, and that's with that upper low just kind of doing a bit of a stretch, but given the fact that the origins of this are coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and you got that Pacific subtropical jet, this thing should be loaded precip wise. And the models actually kind of really go, energetic with rainfall here Monday morning, if you want to believe it. I've got this is the actual total precip. I'm going to switch it over to the radar in a second. But you can also see what's happening with that northern stream right up here. There's a cold front here, and you've got, cold air with a high that's behind it. And if that, again, it's important to remember that if that northern shortwave doesn't extend far enough south, then we're probably going to see mostly rain, maybe some places well inland change. But I kind of thought that this was a little, sort of aggressive by the GFS and also the Icon. And it actually even changed it over to snow over New York City and Long Island with this toward the end. Because now you're dealing with the low that comes up, and then you got the cutoff in the upper atmosphere. So it's, it's complex. And oftentimes, Joe, when we're in the long range, it looks complex. And then when we get to the actual event, it becomes much more smoother, let's say, where it's just one low and you don't get all that stretching. So bear in mind that could very well happen. But it was an interesting run to see this today. But this is Sunday evening. I mean, the gradient from south of New York City, but particularly from Delaware down to Virginia and North Carolina, very tight. And then the gradient gets tight overnight into Monday morning as the low approaches. And then we're still, according to this, because of the way the upper low is, we're still raining here Monday night and Tuesday. Get a little bit of a break with that first band, then we get another round Monday night into Tuesday, and then after that it finally goes away. Just the fact that we're seeing these storms along the East Coast like this, I think that alone is different than last year.
One of the people on the chat board, Chuck Cardillo, says that this reminds him of the great March storm of 1993 minus the snow and the cold. And, it does, you look at the surface and it does have that aspect to it of a tightly wound system. I'm wondering how much severe weather is going to play it. Well, we haven't even looked yet at SPC, right? For, going down the road. They don't go that far.
Oh, you mean for severe weather?
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at what they're doing.
I mean, December 17th. I mean, we don't.
No, I mean, it'll be in the, I don't know if they're going to have anything in the long range yet at this point. They may just have predictability too low.
Right.
But let's take a look. No severe, no severe, no severe. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, they've got no area. Predictability too low, predictability too low, predictability too low. So they actually have day 6 is Monday into Tuesday. Day 5 is Sunday into Monday. They have predictability too low. So that at least says that, okay, if they had potential too low, then you would think that not much would happen. But that they have predictability too low means they're kind of thinking about something.
Yeah.
Something somewhere.
It could very well be the Southeast, Florida. I mean, how about this? A pre-Christmas severe weather outbreak.
I'm surprised. You know what? Now that you mention it, Saturday. Let's see. What's the day 3 on this? Hang on. Day 3 should be Friday into Saturday. Yes, it's Friday into Saturday morning. They've got nothing in Florida. They actually have some in Texas and Southwest Louisiana. So maybe Saturday into Sunday, which would be day 4, and they have predictability too low. But yeah, I wonder if there might not be. Looking at this, let's switch to the radar view because I think that's important to look at. Let's look at the radar view of this, and they get into some really hefty rainfall here. There probably will be some thunderstorms in there. I got to imagine it would be.
Yeah, it's like what we were saying about the most recent system, where they had nothing, and then eventually they did put us in general thunderstorm coverage.
Yep, and there's that big arm of rain moving up, and then here comes the low. The surface low, little snow on the backside there, and then out it goes. To show everybody there for southeastern New England and eastern Long Island, and then gone. I just want to see how much rain the GFS generates. Actually, before we even do that, let me go to the European because again, I just saying before how the models are very similar. This is the 18Z is out to 84 hours, and it looks like it's pretty much on course with what the 0Z had to try to bring a low somewhere near Tampa there. Let's go back to the 12, and this way we can take it further. See, it's got a tight, wrapped up little center there, but there's no convection. They're not going to make it subtropical. But anyway, here it goes. Offshore the Georgia, South Carolina coast. Then it comes inland, and then it just sort of sits there under the upper low, but very similar to the GFS. And by the way, remember on this map, you're not going to see snow because this is just precip. It doesn't show precip type. That's not available on tropical tidbits. But it's still the same idea, but with a big round of wind and rain moving up the coast into New England. Then you get the backside low with the upper feature going by, and then it goes out. And if I'm not going to do it, but they showed you the Canadian and the icon, they would be pretty much the same thing. So we'll probably get better clues tomorrow in terms of the timing. And then the other issue is, that northern shortwave, if it winds up extending far enough south or not, whether that's going to be an issue. We'll see.
Yeah, we're going to see. The interesting thing also is that it's a pattern, or it's a weather system that's going to stay with us for more than just a day or two. We're still going to have its influence into at least the early part of next week. And yeah, it's something.
Yes, it is. All right. Flood weather. Thank you for sending these and put them on the screen for you. So just this way, everybody can sort of calm down. If you take a look, this is the C3S. I don't know what C3S is. An ensemble mean upper air, 500 millibar upper air for moderate to strong east-based El Ninos. I don't know how they figured this out going back to 1876.
Yeah.
But
How did they figure it?
okay, but if you look at the upper air, and that would be, let me get my little pen. Whoops. Oh, I'm not allowed to paint on that, it says. But on the right, the graphic on the right, if you look at it, this is not that different from the kind of pattern that we have. This is the average look. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be exact, but you can see where the ridging is, the higher the normal pressures in the eastern United States, and then you've got this troughing from Alaska down the west coast into the southwest. Troughing over Asia, ridging, weak troughing, below average type troughing in Eastern Europe, and below normal pressures in the Atlantic. So this is for the month of December. This is what it would look at, moderate to strong east-based El Ninos during the month of December. And I'm going to go to, I've got a couple of graphics here, so we'll bring the next one up, and we'll take a look at January in these situations. Now, you see a general, the deep troughing is more down along 160, which is, when I like to look and see troughs at 160, because usually that means we have troughs at 80. The ridging is more in eastern across Canada, and you have below normal and colder heights further south. So this is sort of what the average looks like during the month of January. And then when you go to February, we're going to take that now. We go to February, it gets more pronounced, where you have the higher pressures pushing up more from Greenland to Labrador to the Hudson Bay, which is kind of blocky. And you've got the jet, in the Pacific, again, away from Alaska and the west coast, and there's ridging on up in the northwestern part of Canada. So that would be a positive for a colder airflow. So the argument here is that these things tend to favor backloaded winters. Although I don't know how you can call it backloaded if we start seeing a different weather pattern at the end of December that's more favorable for snow going into early January. I wouldn't necessarily call it backloaded. For me, backloaded is where you have to wait till February to get a snowfall. All right, but this maybe it comes sooner. I don't know. And the other thing that I think is, again, I'm cautiously encouraged. I'm not, jumping up and down about it, but I stole this from Dave Toleris. Dave, I'm giving you credit. So this is the coral reef sea surface temperature anomaly. So it's the El Nino, and I wanted to point out that it was kind of just bobbing up and down a degree and a half to 1.5 to 1.8 from the beginning of October to the middle part of November, and then you see the temperature shoots up very rapidly to over 2.1 degrees above normal. But that's been the peak, and it's come down. It came down below 2, and it's been sort of dancing below 2 for the last 10 days or so, and now it's taken another leg down. So now we're down to about 1.75. So if you take this, and then there are the European and a few other models model this out, suggest that this was the peak, and that we will be continuing to see a decrease in the ocean water temperatures in the El Nino zone. So this chart says that the El Nino peaked a little bit before December 1st. Obviously, there's a lag, so we're probably experiencing what we're experiencing because of this rapid rise that occurred in the middle part of November. That's playing itself out now. Now we're seeing this drop. And maybe it's going to take a little while for that to work into the atmosphere, but it should. Now, let me switch over to the maps. And before I do this,
it's not going to, you do some extrapolation. You say, oh my God, it'll be all the way down near the bottom by the time we get to another week or so. But it's not going to work out that way. Obviously, it's got to.
No, it might ebb back and forth, but as long as it's in a downtrend, I think that's probably the most important takeaway for me.
Well, my hat's off to people like Dave Toleris and Bill Kirk and maybe a couple of others who've been screaming in the face of oh, it's going to be a super El Nino, it's going to be a strong, and they've been saying that this thing is going to peak rather early in the meteorological winter, and it's going to be going down, down, down during especially the mid and late winter period. And it is that conclusion that has left those forecasters in saying, hey, it is going to eventually turn wintry. It may not be wintry at the start, but just stay calm. And maybe that'll happen.
All right, so let me just acknowledge the chairman, Scott Briller, hitting Super Chat. Thank you for hitting the tip jar. Fairbanks is going for its 52nd straight year with a white Christmas, and since 1905, the only year where they did not have a white Christmas, Joe, was 1934.
Now, I don't understand that. If the string runs 52 consecutive years, possibly. 52,
oh, right. Then if it's 1934, it's got to be more than 52.
It's got to. If you go 52 years back, 1971 is when that string started. So if it started in 1971, wasn't 1971 a year when they did not have a white Christmas?
Well, right. Okay. So, there's a problem here.
Yes.
Well, let's see how this gets resolved. I'm sure Scott will check that out. And Izzy D also banging the tip jar. Thank you, Izzy. Most appreciated. And we're at 93 likes, and we didn't even ask to go to 100 likes. But if you like the show, hit the like button. And if you really like the show, subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss us. Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35 p.m. And I'm just a couple of subscribers shy of 14,000. All right, so here's what the upper air looks like now. And again, the thing to pay attention to, we've got this trough that runs from Alaska down to off the west coast. Got this fire hose here out in the Pacific that's almost but not quite running into the west coast. It's a little different than last year. It's fire hose, but still, this is all Pacific air that's coming in, going down. The Canada connection is more up here. This is where you've got your cold. All right, and again, this is for Monday because you got the cutoff low, with our storm sitting on the West Virginia state line. Now, not a whole lot is going to happen next week, but the thing is, you got to get rid of that troughing in Alaska. And what happens is, another upper low drops down off the west coast, another upper low moves into Alaska. So now we're toward the end of next week, and you still got troughing there, and on we go into the weekend, Saturday into Christmas weekend. You got an upper low in the southwest. You still got troughing there over Alaska. Now, after that, it starts to go away. Finally, not only does the trough go away, but toward the end of the forecast period, you've got nice ridging up in Western Canada, and you've got more of a Canadian connection that's closer. You got a very active Pacific. I mean, lots of systems that are moving across. So that's part of the equation. And you even have a bit of a 50-50-ish low out there, which is sort of interesting. But I don't know if it's going to look exactly like this. But just the fact that we are seeing, and actually we're making some progress here, a little bit of progress here in terms of time, because now it looks like the change starts right around day 10 or 11 in the long range and evolves into this, as opposed to not seeing it at all. And it's been 4 runs in a row, Joe, that I've seen this. So I'm encouraged, cautiously encouraged. I want to see what happens the next 5 days with all of this. But I think that Pacific fire hose pattern looks like it's going to break down. And the other thing I've been watching the CFS model, which we all know is the can't forecast, 4-letter word that starts with S. And I'm waiting for the weekly forecast to do what the CFS loves to do, which is to show cold, and then when you get really close, it just flips completely. Well, it's not doing that. In fact, this is what it looks like from January 3rd to January 10th. That's a nice looking trough there in the eastern part, from northeastern Canada all the way down into northern Florida, and equally a very nice looking ridge in the northwest going up through western Canada. I mean, this says cold in the eastern part of the United States with that kind of a flow. The only question is it going to be? I mean, obviously this is a broad, smoothed out picture, but remember, what you wish for and what you get are two different things. And if we get to this point, watch, Joe, we'll get to a point, we'll go in the other extreme, where for at least a couple of weeks we'll have so much cold, it will be so deep into the cold air, and that everything will be suppressed way to the south.
Right. That's how it always happens. It always happens that way.
I know. I mean, just it would be. If that were to happen, it would not shock me. Let's put it that way. But again, the weeklies are certainly pointing. The CFS has not flipped yet. Okay, there's still time for it to flip, but it's actually been remarkably consistent for the better part of several weeks now with this look. So this is not something that just appeared. It's been doing this for a while. So let's go. It's going to go day to day. We've got another 10 days to kind of get through, and then we'll get to Christmas, and then we'll have, then it should be if something's going to happen, it should be in the shorter range at that point.
Flood weather thank you very much for hitting Super Chat and his ED a second time. But Flood Weather points out he's just gotten a gander at the new extended BEFS, Joe, and the European weeklies that come out faster on the paid site, and they both have a negative EPO established by New Year's Eve, New Year's Day.
And you know how I love the negative EPO. I just do. It I'd rather have that than the NAO. Give me the negative EPO, and um, I'll take my chances. That's how I've always felt about that. Just want to get the right map up here, which is not this one. Upper dynamics, 500 millibar. So I mean, this is the new GEFs, and here we are with the ridging, mostly ridging in the east. Look at this. The whole U.S. and most of Canada is in a ridge position next week, troughing off both coasts. But then over time, you start to see that get whittled away, and we get into a much better place by the time we get to the days after Christmas. So again, the runs are there. They're kind of getting to where they need to go. I'm cautiously encouraged. You know, uh, uh, I need a week of this stuff to start to get more excited about it. Let's put it that way.
Well, maybe we'll have something exciting to talk about Christmas week.
We got two more. Johnny Quest also hit Super Chat, and he asks if you're under that upper low. I assume mean the upper low that was sitting up in West Virginia. Could that bring snow, especially for the high elevations? Absolutely. I think that's something you got to look for. If that northern shortwave, Johnny, gets involved the way the GFS did at 12Z, and how some of the other models are showing, then yes, I think this might be something just like what happened this week with parts of the Central Appalachians and even down into the Southern Appalachians above 3,500 feet. If you get that northern shortwave to get involved, you'll probably get snow, and it might even bring the snow levels down as well, which didn't happen the last time. So we'll be certainly watching for that possibility. And I don't know if that's a second. Izzy D hit it again. Oh my God, Izzy,
Yes.
you hit Super Chat
Yes.
twice, hitting the tip jar. Thank you very
Right.
much. So that's it in a nutshell. Let me just get us back on the screen. Uh,
Mr. August Over, another new name for our chat board list. He said, this is a Miller Type A setup map, isn't it?
oh, we're getting the beer out now, aren't we?
But it's Miller time.
Miller time, yes. None of us know where we're going with this, folks. So let's try and enjoy the trip there as best we can. That's all. That's about as philosophical as I'm going to get at this point. So, you want some Briller Jeopardy?
Have you got it? We'll take it, I guess.
I got it. Okay, so we're going to do average highs for the month of December. Okay? Are you ready, everybody?
Yes.
Average highs for the month of December, starting with Miami.
Miami. All right. How about 81?
81. Well, you're not that far off. You're not that far off. Chuck Cardillo at 77 and Helen Bertona at 79. But Bella Lugrissi and Michael Azera getting it, and so is Miss Fallerite at 78. Hope you're feeling good, Miss Fallerite. We're thinking of you. 78. And Maggie P, 78. Okay, New York City Central Park.
In December?
In December, the average high.
Average high? Wow. How about 44?
And 44 is the correct answer. 44. All right, he got the correct answer, so everybody should stop guessing. And the next city is.
We're over 100 likes anyway. So.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you rang the bell because you hit it on the nose. Yes. The next city is Philadelphia. Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. I will say 40. 47.
So was Frank R. Very close, by the way. But Robert Lomanicki, Izzy D, Chuck Cardillo, Patrick Darcy, Michael Azera, all getting the correct answer, 46. And Justin Ball, 46 also. Next, Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona.
Da, 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 da.
How about for Phoenix? How about, well, I will say 79.
79. Oh my, Joe.
Going over the top already?
Well, you made a fair distance up. Let's put it that way. Okay. I'm just looking at the numbers, and all right. So Patrick Darcy at 67. Cenopedia is at 68. CoinPig is at 68. And I'm trying to see. Bella Lugrisi, 67. Getting close. 67.
You think about all of the days that they had temperatures above 100
Right.
this summer, and it's hard for me to believe that the normal December high could be as low as in the 60s.
Yes. Well, Crucidopedia, Robert Lomanicki, Patrick Darcy, SED, David Fuller, Boxcars, Joe, Boxcars, 66. Big Benny's, Boxcars, Big Benny's, and Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City. Oklahoma. How about, because they can get the occasional blue norther. 58.
Now you're over the cliff. Oh, Joe Lopresti got it on the nose. 50.
50.
50.
Wow.
50. Half a dollar. 50. So I'm trying to find this conversation that I was having with somebody yesterday on one of my posts. Thought you might enjoy this. Hold on. See if I can find it. I was in a, one of the things I dislike this time of year is seeing comments from people that that get so worked up over the lack of snowfall that they just as I've said how many times, Joe, for the snow weenies, if it's not snowing from every day from November 1st to the end of at least the end of April, they go off the deep end. So I was having anyway. I see always these comments that to me just borderline on childishness and just people just sort of jumping up and down throwing temper tantrums, and I have no patience for that. But there was one in particular. I'm trying to find it, and it doesn't look like I'm going to find it. I'm just going to just quickly scroll down. I'll just give you the gist of it. But this was sort of on a different take because now I'm not only getting that, but every time I post something, mostly people that seem to live, that are getting my Facebook page on their news feeds that live in other places up and down the East Coast, especially the South, insist on telling me how they're spraying the clouds in North Carolina. This one guy was saying how they're spraying the clouds in North Carolina for whatever's right. So I just kind of decided to have fun with the guy, and I just said, you know what? I just checked the spraying schedule, being that I'm under government control, and so I said just check the spraying schedule, so that makes sense. He writes back and he says, "Well, it's nice of you to be honest about it." I got such a kick out of that response. Yes, I was.
You think he would say something like, now you're pulling my putt or something? You actually went full scale.
Oh yeah, right. full dive right into the deep end of the pool. No floaties on. No lifesaver. Just went right in and
Yep.
said that he appreciated the fact that I was being honest.
Yes.
Oh God, I mean, it's just mind-boggling to me that people, I think what it is for me, the way I look at when I see those comments, I visualize someone sitting in an armchair on their deck, reclining, okay, and seeing the water vapor that's coming out of planes, and of course it's some. Oh, and he said, by the way, it was the Department of Defense that was doing this. Okay, and they always post it in such a way, the way they write it implies that A, they're smarter than you, and B, they have information that only they have and nobody else has, and that we need to sit down and listen to them. I mean, that's the thing that gets me uh, about some of those comments. That when they write stuff like that they sort that they don't imply, they're saying you're a dope. I'm smarter than you because I have this information. I have this secret information that's the truth. That is the fact. That is a fact, and uh, you know they come to people like us because they want us to validate them, and of course they're not going to get that.
What
I
are you
am
going
I am not the sort of person that validates stupidity.
to?
Joe Mayano banged the super chat tip jar. Thank you, Joe. So anyway, that's probably the most exciting thing that happened to me today.
All right. Well, since you mentioned Super Chat, we might as well mention all of the kind folks out there who hit it tonight for us. We have had Super Chat hits from David Fuller, Keep James second, Robert
Lomanicki, Lomanicki.
Lomanicki, the chairman, Izzy D, not once but twice, Johnny Quest, Fledweather, and most recent one, Joe Miano.
Oh, and just real quick, folks, thanks, Fled Weather, alerting me. I forgot to check the Zero Z from last night, which is now out to like 500 and something hours. But looks very much like the CFS. Trough in the east, negative EPO signal, and the trough from the Aleutians down to maybe about 150 or so. That could be a little better, but nonetheless, it's a much better look. So there's that. Okay, and the Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Tempest is an affiliate of the Joe and Joe Weather Show. You get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. You still have time to have it there under the Christmas tree for the weather enthusiast in your life. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. Also the referral link is on the descriptor to this live stream. And use the coupon code I want a weather station, and if you do,
You'll get 10% off. I just did a ham bone face.
You did? Well, you were off camera. I didn't see
No,
it.
I did the little space between the Tempest and
Oh. Oh,
I
okay.
did kind of like what Sandy Becker, because there was a certain age, know who Sandy Becker is. When he played ham bone, he had a certain face with his thick goggle glasses. I just when
Oh God. All right. All right, so we'll see everybody tomorrow night at 7:35.
we will be here.
Nighty night.
Night night.